sure that my internet might go down at some point. So
We'll improvise. We'll improvise. Okay, it looks like we've got some more people on the call. Thank you everyone for joining. I'm Samantha Burns. I'm the head of marketing at Trace Air, and we appreciate you guys all joining us today, especially our lovely panelists from the Pier 70 project. I'll have you guys go around and introduce yourselves, and maybe just state your name, what company you work for, your role on the Pier 70 project, and yeah, really, how you're involved with the Pier 70 project. So David, why don't you start?
sure. My name is David Greenstein. I'm with Brookfield. We are the master developer partnered with the Port of San Francisco, and my role in the project is as senior project manager to deliver the design and construction of the streets, parks, and space. Mike, I'll pass it to you, Mike.
Sure. My name is Michael Georges. I am a project executive at a plant construction company. I'm responsible for the work that we're doing at Pier 70, which is all the horizontal infrastructure, parks and open space, and also Building 12, one of the vertical projects on there.
And I am Josh Bardet. I'm an engineer with Hollins Consulting, and we're contracted with the Port of San Francisco, the landowner at the project site. And we coordinate between all the infrastructure acquiring agencies and represent the port in various review items.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys again for joining. David, why don't you give an overview of the project, what some of the scope is, kind of the major timeline, and some of the major elements of the project for anybody who's on the call that isn't familiar with Pier 70.
Sure. I'm going to jump right into sharing my screen because I think I can do it a lot better, and then you don't have to look at my face right up against the camera. Pier 70 is a project in San Francisco. It's along the southeast waterfront of San Francisco in the community called Dogpatch. For folks who are familiar with Dogpatch, I'm panning down into the area. What you're seeing here is an image through Trace Air's platform, which shows kind of an older Google image with a pre-construction image of the property. And the property is it's 35 acres, but our project is responsible for 28 of those acres. And what you're seeing again is an aerial image taken probably, well, definitely pre-construction for our project, probably back in 2017, 16, 17. The project kicked off entitlements in 2010, and we started our initial construction demo and grading in the summer of 2018. The site was a historic shipyard, and I'm going to just kind of throw up what that looks like real quick here. And this is an image that we have from 1938, which shows where Pier 70 was back pre-US involvement in World War II, as a shipyard building ships, maintaining ships, and as part of that, there are slipways and craneways along the shoreline out here on the eastern waterfront. Our project, as part of the entitlements, was to kind of incorporate a lot of the historic components of the project, i.e. buildings, components that would allow you to experience what the site might have felt like around this time frame. And so when we got the site entitled, we entitled it for mixed use development, which includes residential, commercial, and office. And so what that looks like, I'm just going to throw on that on top of this image, and then we'll show you what the site looks like today. Sorry, I just want to find the right one here. So this is what the site is going to be. Yellow is residential, red is commercial, and blue is office. And then where you see stripes, it's where we can change between residential and office. We have a min maximum scenario between the entitlements. We got the streets entitled to be a little hard to see here, to touch 20th Street and 22nd Street, which are the north and south boundaries of the property. And then it runs down Maryland Street, which connects back to Illinois Street, which is here. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this cool historic image and show you what the site looks like today. And so with our project in phase one, the delivery of phase one are 20th Street, Maryland, 22nd Street, and then also Louisiana Street up around until it connects back with 20th, and then a short portion of 20th Street here. And so that looks like this. And included in that is some parks and open space, which gives us an immediate connection right back to the bay, which is a key piece of our delivery, was to make sure we got connection to the bay early on in the project, which presents some challenges because connecting all the way out there without buildings and other things is a bit difficult, but we are moving forward. So I'm going to go ahead and just move back and take off some of the stuff so you can see the full site today. As part of the demo and grading for the project, we have a fairly well-balanced site with soil. We were able to use some of the what we call borrow pits, which are the future land pads, as a way to remove soil, mix it to become general fill, which we could use to backfill the streets, which you're kind of seeing an outline of. There's a lot of different components to this project, and we cannot go through all of them today. So I'm going to kind of stop there at this moment. Let you know that some of the key pieces here is to rehabilitate some buildings. Building 12, which is a vertical project that Mike Georges and the plant construction team is on from the vertical side. They're also our horizontal general contractor delivering the streets for phase one. And then we've also got building 2, which is a rehabilitation project in phase 1 as well, and then some other ones in future phases. There are 3 phases in the project, and the full build out of the project is about 10 to 20 years, pending market conditions and obviously, the right timing for all of this to come together. Give it back to you, Samantha.
Wow, 10 to 20 years, that's quite a timeline. So thank you for sharing all of that about the project. With these mixed use projects, there are always a lot of stakeholders. So can you tell us a little bit more about how many companies and stakeholders there are on the project, and what are some of the primary challenges of communicating and coordinating with all of those different entities on this job?
Sure. So Josh knows as well as I do that delivering and dedicating new streets in San Francisco presents a lot of challenges into itself, let alone having vertical buildings coming online with the architects and the general contractors who are kind of putting those plans together to coordinate with the streets. So all of that makes for a very difficult communicative relationship amongst all the parties, stakeholders involved. As our role as the master developer, our job is to try and get the streets built, constructed, and dedicated back to the city of San Francisco. Currently, all of the streets, other than a small section of 22nd Street, is port-owned property. And so our public-private partnership with the port is to help create a path to give those new streets back to the city of San Francisco. And as part of that, we have an agreement with the Port of San Francisco that we are reimbursed for that portion of infrastructure that is required for the project, and that is in our disposition and development agreement. And Josh's role, which I'll let him further dive into, is to help coordinate and make sure that that is done in accordance with all of our governing documents. How that comes into play again is that there are many stakeholders just within the city of San Francisco, the various agencies, whether it be Public Works, Public Utilities Commission, SFMTA, Bureau of Streets and Mapping, and all of the subdivisions of those specific agencies. Then there's also on the building side, we work with the Port of San Francisco's building department. We are going to eventually probably work with the Department of Building Inspection, DBI, in San Francisco. And so all of those agencies coming together need to make sure that they coordinate all these plans so that we ultimately don't come out and have to replace things that we've already constructed. So it makes for a very challenging project. And so amongst that are all the design teams, whether they be architects, engineers, there's marketing components. So it really touches every piece. And that's what really makes this project challenging.
Wow. Josh, can you tell us a little bit more about your role, working, for and with the port in the city, and how you support this project, and what are some of the unique challenges that you faced from the government agency side?
Yeah, so I think David just hit a lot of good points in terms of summarizing all the stakeholders and how complex these projects in San Francisco are. Just to reiterate, in San Francisco, as David said, you don't just have one public works agency running the show. You have stakeholders from MTA, PUC, Port, Public Works, Fire Department, and various other agencies, along with all your private utilities that are getting infrastructure as part of this subdivision. And so the major challenge inherent in that structure is getting everyone on the same page. And so our role, a major component of our role at Hollins is to facilitate conversations, make sure design review is moving forward. If there's RFIs, submittals, other construction transmittals that are on the critical path to be responded to keep things moving, our role is to, make sure those get to the right people at the right agencies, and that they're reviewed and responded to efficiently. So it's challenging, just again, in the fact that you're working with so many people, and that the key to getting these things done quickly, especially get in a city like San Francisco, where, Pier 70 is not the only game in town. There's over 10 other major subdivisions being built out, and agencies, multi-billion-dollar capital improvement programs, which are their prime focus. The key is communicating construction issues or design issues, early, and what's the word I'm looking for? Early and often, yeah, but concisely and clearly at first. You don't want to send in an RFI that is vague, that doesn't paint the whole picture, because you're just going to get questions back, and you're going to drop back to the back of the queue of all the things that your stakeholders are working on. And so Tracehair has been super helpful in allowing our firm Hollins to communicate some of the issues. I mean, David was just putting on a whole bunch of overlays that you all just saw. We do the same thing during meetings, or, we can overlay things on Tracehair, export them to PDF, and share those with the acquiring agencies I just talked about. And it's just an efficient way to communicate. Not to use another cliche, but a picture paints 1,000 words, right? And so if I can show water department their wet utilities overlaid with the conflict that MTA has to help them balance their respective priorities without going into CAD or trying to mess with PDFs, it's super helpful for us.
So would you say that city agencies who might be used to dealing with a lot more PDF or more traditional CAD or 2D type drawings, do you think they've been really receptive to the aerial images with overlays and using technology, and do you think they've been embracing it so far?
Yes. I think there's still work to be done in terms of cities embracing technologies. I think some jurisdictions are further ahead than others. But it's definitely something that I think the agencies see the value in. It also gives your stakeholders an appreciation for what's going on, which is important. And I think David can speak to that as well. But if you're sitting in an office and you just get a plan on your desk with one little subsection of an intersection, and you review that, it communicates what the issue is technically, I suppose. But if you see something on Tracehair like, wow, this project's really moving along, there's a lot of stuff to do, you can really appreciate the progress more. And I think the project takes on a little bit more importance with that context. So it's definitely useful. Short answer to your question.
Sure. I'd actually like to hear from Mike a little bit, as the GC for the, horizontal construction and the Building 12 rehabilitation. You're communicating with a lot of different stakeholders. And can you, a lot of those changes can have a massive domino effect on the project. So do you think you could communicate with us just some of the challenges that you guys have on the project with dealing with so many different entities and how you try and work through it?
Yeah, thank you. So it started off, it was always fairly complex, and then it's gotten more complex as we've been bringing other entities onto the project and into the project. So we, originally it was plant construction doing rough grading out there, and a lot of the considerations early on, even in the rough grading, was at some point, Building 12 will come on as a construction project. Parcel E2 will come on as a construction project. I think David's waving his mouse around E2 right now. Oh, okay, yeah, that's great. So here, so E2, 12. So a lot of the early considerations were, when these projects come on, how do we allow them to work around us? How do we complete our road work and horizontal improvements that we're working with the port and Brookfield on, and at the same time letting, say, Building E2, that happens to be a NIBI project, residential project over there, allow them to build while we are finishing up our roadways and things like that. So there was a lot of early on discussions amongst our team, how we would phase the work, how we would provide access to, for example, NIBI or Cahill, who's working on Building 2, or Swinnerton, who's working on Parcel A. So there's already like 4 generals playing in the same sandpit, and that has all its challenges in itself. Then another component is underneath that building that's titled E4, up in the red in the upper right corner. There's artists that are working in the Noonan building over there. And that we've always had to provide continuous access to those artists. It's the little wood building up there on the right. So throughout all this, we've always had to find a way to provide them access. We've had to reroute their traffic outside of our work area or through our work area with fences on either side. So there's a tremendous amount of coordination just on the high level. How does one manage a site like this and allow, in this case, 3 other vertical projects and 1 private entity to still exist there and it is amongst one another? So that was where a lot of the challenges were up front. And then as the project progressed, and as the project Building 12 that we are working on, or Cahill's Building E2, Building 2, or NIBI's E2, the parcel over to the dirt parcel to the left, have come on. There was a lot of coordination because we already had finished utility maps of the the wet utilities, the dry utilities, storm drain, et cetera. These were already established, and one can imagine that when a residential or Building 12 comes online, well, we may have, nobody can anticipate. So as early on, 5 years ago or 4 years ago, when the designs were being developed for the horizontal work, nobody could anticipate exactly what 12 might look like and where their storm drains would be, where their water, would come in the way, where the power would come. So what David's shown here is a very simple overlay of the wet utilities. And so while you're still always going back to, the detailed drawings and your drawing set, the most current drawing set, and checking, the various files against each other, using something like Tracer, and that's what we've used is Tracer on this project, to very quickly and easily go, okay, all these red things are the storm drain laterals from serving Building 12. And, you know, there's a couple of things you can see. For example, some of them don't go all the way to the building. Well, that's actually by design. There's another piece of land that is the parks and open space that occurs into it. So that's another set of drawings that has to be coordinated and can be overlaid here. The other thing we can quickly tell, do these utilities look at least about right to what 12, our building 12 was planning to do. And so that gave us our first indication, was there anything that we've got a problem here or we don't have a problem? And so we were able very quickly and easily here to do some very basic checks. How does the wet utilities, the storm drain, water lines, and combined sewers and the sewer system, how does that all line up with where we think it's coming out of the building 12? And so that coordination at a high level, certainly from the level that I sort of operate at, allowed me in particular to just go in and go, yeah, this looks about right. I don't think there's an issue. Or to highlight and go, you know, there's a problem. We need to look at this a little bit closer. So quick access with the layering and turning on layers, turning off layers allowed us to do much smoother communication. And also sort of live. I mean, I think what you see here and how we're using this now is not unlike how we might use it in a coordination meeting that we would have with Brookfield, with the other GCs on the project. We'd have those once every 2 weeks to kind of go over stuff. What's you know, where the pinch points, where the conflicts, how do we resolve the conflicts? And this is always a great starting point to do that from. So I think that's, you know, primarily how, you know, the biggest challenge we have when you are coordinating a large site with different general contractors, combined, you know, owner, and then as Josh Bardet said, different city entities that we're dealing with. You know, like for example, you know, building 12 is inspected by the port, but building E2 will be inspected by the city. So there's a lot of different people that need to use it, and having one place with quick access to a lot of very basic. It's not all the detail information, although I'm sure you could use it for that, but it's the very basic information that, you know, that to establish quick communication amongst parties in a meeting. So that's what we like it using Tracer for. And I think that also sums up a lot of the challenges on the job.
Wow, I mean, that sounds like an incredible amount of coordination, not just from, you know, your own job and within your own footprint, but within just like the massive site, dealing with, you know, neighboring GCs, working on other projects. You know, you have, you know, ongoing operations nearby. It just seems like it's, you know, a lot of challenges on the GC side. So, you know, you guys talked a lot about how you're using these overlays to help facilitate meetings. David, do you think you could share a little bit about how this might help make an OAC meeting, or however you guys are calling them, but helping these meetings move along a lot faster, or just maybe helping decisions get made more quickly?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be reiterating the points here, but it is an ability to go 1,000 feet in the air and then down to about a foot or 2 feet. We're not getting into the details. We're not getting into the inches, most likely. We're identifying quickly where it is we're talking about, what it means to the stakeholders who are abutting that potential design. So it could be an existing property owner here up against 20th Street, because this historic core has current property owners, so we might be talking about an issue there. It could be, again, inside a parcel that we're doing schematic design around and how that abuts our street. It could be with existing private utilities over here, because this is PG&E. So it's ability to look at that, get everyone to understand where we are first, because oftentimes it takes a long time just for everyone to understand, when we're just talking with words, where we are, what are we talking about. We get there a lot faster, and that saves us a lot of time to actually solve the problem, because we don't have 8 hours of meetings every day. Well, we do, but we'd like to have less meetings, 8 hours, and a lot more 1-hour meetings that actually get us to the next critical path action item. That's what we have goals in those meetings, and the goals create action items for us to do. Who's doing what now? What's next? So the what's next is less ambiguous when we're able to identify much more quickly a way to frame the problem. And we frame it well using this platform, or we have thus far. And as more people on our project get familiar with it and comfortable with how it's being used and the level of accuracy that it has, the better we're able to continue to frame those issues. And so at our OAC meetings, we definitely don't use trace error all the time. We use it occasionally, but when we do use it, it's because it's a problem that interfaces with many other problems, and we don't want to undervalue those. So we'll use it often to determine how we're going to do this, that, or the other. But when it comes down into the details, no, we're going to get the plans, we're going to get the civil engineer, and we're going to go into the actual plan sets and discuss them there. This just gets us there to those plans faster.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
another thing, Samantha, is just like a recent example, we were talking with Cahill and Brookfield about how to set up Cahill's site as they start to come on. They're planning to come on early next year.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a question of parking, and so you can see the parking area in this picture over here. And so we're able to say, okay, this is about how much parking we have for the site right now. And it became clear that, the area to the east of the building in this picture probably isn't enough for Cahill to use as a laydown area, certainly when they have to share it with us in building 12. But their superintendent thought in the meeting was like, well, what about using the area of parking as a staging area for them? And so he said, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Let's see how much area that is. And that we can always quickly get out of Tracy here doing some measurements. So we can quickly, measure what that parking area is and say, okay, we would use that for staging areas for both building 12 and 2. And then at that time, when you slide to the southeast corner of the site, where David is going right now, we know that the stockpile area here that's, David pointed out, well, that stockpile is going to be gone by the time Cahill comes on. So we could quickly look and go, yeah, visually it looks like about the same area, but we can quickly take that area off as well on screen and live with everybody present. Go, that seems like a real feasible idea. Let's keep going in that direction. I think that's like a, super simple site logistics that's faced by everybody, on these large job sites. Where do people park? And I think,
and while we could do that in Bluebeam on a logistics plan, Mike, I think that's like what people would typically do. What you're missing is well, what is there right now? And seeing the stockpile, and then like, well, where does that go? And then we can say, well, it's going to be filling in over here. And as opposed to them just believing you can see very clearly we're short here. We have, we've got our cut fill in this that we could literally show them if they really question whether or not they believed us. But it allows us to really make sure they understand that this is real. This isn't just us trying to give them some, good information, make them feel warm and fuzzy. No, this is actually where the soil is going to go. It's going to go from here over to here. And I know Josh Bardet, we talked with him, and we've set up ways to exemplify over the course of our project where soil has gone by taking a look at, what the site looked like, back in February when we had a bunch of soil here and we weren't sure where it was going to go. And then as time moved on, we saw that we were going to get ready to fill this in. This stockpile kind of was continuing to exemplify itself as needing to be moved. And then, eventually it was moved, and it was moved here. And I don't have I could bring up the plan tracking to show you guys the actual, that actual soil moving in with colors, but you can see it visually here that this went down and this went up with soil. So it's in the basic framework of conversation, it really helps for us to see it in real life and not just see it on a piece of paper.
Yeah, and David, to your point, the things you're describing are things that don't really show up on a plan. Soil moving around a job site doesn't show up on a plan. Another part of our role, which I didn't describe earlier, is helping the port review this project in the framework of an infrastructure acquisition agreement. I don't know who all on the call is familiar with public financing for infrastructure, but essentially we're reviewing plant as the GC their construction progress, their progress payments, and we're validating the progress against what the public financing sources will be reimbursing for infrastructure. And so these kind of things that are related to the infrastructure construction, but again, don't necessarily show on a plan, it's very helpful to have the record from TraceAir, either using the imagery from the drone, as David was just walking through, or the compare surfaces feature to view the deltas and the grade changes over time, to validate month by month progress payments. It saves so much time in that sense. Myself or my colleagues, rather than spending half a day arranging a field visit, can pull this up from our home offices during COVID and quickly answer some of our own questions that we would otherwise have to talk through with David or Mike and their colleagues. And then hitting on the real-time aspect of this, that's important too. You know, David's showing the pano shot right now, and we have a date stamp on all those. And you could also see it in the drone images. But, you know, I was just recently working with PUC on some RFIs related to a large 48-inch combined sewer storage pipe that's out towards the bay. And we can quickly show PUC the progress on that pipe, help them prioritize their review items based on how far that subcontractor is getting along. So you can see it here in the shot David has right now. I can actually see where Anvil is excavating, and you can almost probably see the tidewater filling their 15-foot deep hole there. So again, it goes back to just reminding everyone where things are in the construction phasing and how urgent certain items are compared to others.
And what's great about this shot is we can see that we're actually working in the right place.
I mean, I know you're being
Yeah.
funny, but you know, it's really common that people have to redo things all the time because they're in the wrong spot. So that does
Yeah, it
happen.
doesn't happen to us at all, but
No.
I can understand that with other
Never.
contractors.
That being said, Mike,
Yeah.
you don't know if the
Definitely
manhole's in
only
the
other
right place.
contractors.
Yeah.
Josh, I'm glad you touched on COVID a little bit, everybody's favorite topic. But, you know, I did want to talk to you guys just a little bit about how, you know, obviously this project started before everything, you know, happened in terms of shutdown and sheltering in place. But like, you know, we've all had to embrace technology to communicate with our teams a lot better. Can you guys share some of your experiences there? Like Mike, were you guys in a big room before, and then did you have to shift, or you know, what were you guys doing?
So before we had set up, we didn't quite have a big room. We had, you know, basically we had a trailer farm. Brookfield had a trailer out there, 2 trailers. We had 2 trailers, one of which was a big conference room trailer. When Building 12 came on, we brought another trailer for 12, and, you know, Cahill will have their own trailer, and Nibby will have theirs. So it'd be like this trailer farm with some shared large conference rooms for big meetings with all our teams. And so that was the plan, and frankly is still the plan when we come back. The things that have really impact or been extremely useful from a technological perspective, I think, during this time is obviously the video conference capabilities that have always existed, and using those to full to max. Things such as, you know, like TraceAir, I think, is certainly one that we're using a lot of for quick communication amongst teams, as we've described to you. Multivista, we have about 12 cameras set up around, 9 cameras set up around site, I think, that are taking shots all over the site. And so we use that routinely during owner meetings to go look, here's the progress that we've done on this side of this street, and here's the progress we're doing on this street. These are live, and we can swing the cameras. And so I don't think this is, you know, every other general contractor in the city is doing this, so it's nothing new, but it's these 2, I think, technologies have proven really strong for us in this time. And I can for example, I'm up in Oregon now, and I can just go onto Multivista and see what the progress is on site. And it's fantastic. So, and
I was
then,
going to say your trailer looks lovely. So
yeah,
you don't look like you're on a job site. So
I'm not on a job site. No, I had to come up here for family reasons. But yeah, I mean, it's quite possible to do this fairly remotely and on a large site like this. I mean, for a superintendent to have a quick view of what's going on various parts of the site, and our superintendent uses it. I mean, he is somebody that likes to walk the site as well, but you know, when he's in the site, he has it pretty much routinely set on this and can see what's going on around the site. So a lot of good reasons with the camera tracking, you know, and then Tracer we're using on a monthly cadence to do drone flyovers or special occasions is how we set it up for us. And we use that monthly coincidental to the pay applications. So part of our paying application includes a nice overview shot early on to show, you know, this is what's done this week, and it helps communicate to Josh, and Josh to communicate to the people that he needs to communicate when they're reviewing our pay applications. So these are all, you know, those are the main things that we're using technologically wise to circumvent COVID.
Yeah, that's awesome. Josh, what about you guys over on the agency side? How are you guys kind of more embracing technology?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've kind of hit the main points I wanted to hit about how we're using these products, but I think the key, I don't know if I should call it a silver lining, but what COVID has forced the issue on, especially with large public agencies, is it's forced them to start embracing some of these technologies, and they've really started to see the value of them. Like you mentioned, Samantha, Tracer was around and we were using it before March when things really shut down. But now, rather than just saying, hey, Public Works, this is a resource that's available, we actually see more adaptation of these technologies. And so I think that's the key difference between before March and now. And hopefully that carries through after things start opening up and we resume business as normal, so to speak.
Right. So, you know, based on that response, you have a pretty challenging role on a job like this. What do you think you've learned from Pier 70 that you would take to the next project, just in terms of communication, technology? What would you advise anybody else in a similar role?
You know, like I mentioned early on, the key to having successful interactions with some of these very busy large agencies is giving them a clear picture of what you're trying to accomplish, clear and concise, right? At the outset, whenever an issue comes up or whenever you're doing a design submittal, you could have a design package that's 100 sheets, but what I try to do is communicate to each reviewer what sheets or issues are going to be relevant to them. And so this Tracer or Multivista or other tools are just another way to augment that narrative that you give those reviewers. And I found that to be very helpful.
Thank you. David, you seem like you're a little bit of a champion for technology. Do you find that everybody you work with has the same feeling, or are you having to convert some others to kind of embracing these new tools?
Yeah, I'm not great with technology, and you might think I am because I'm whizzing around this thing right now. That's more a credit to the platform than to me. But what I will say is that a lot of people are reluctant to learn another tool. It takes time and energy to figure out how to use it and why. So, I introduce new tools and concepts only to the people that I feel might want to embrace something that I haven't even thought about, where they might see a new way to convey information. As my role is really here to make sure that we build this thing in the time in which we have to do it, on budget, et cetera, per the typical things that you would expect out of a construction project. And if I can cut my time down quickly by using a tool like this, then I can only imagine how much other folks would be able to do that too, giving them more time and energy to fulfill whatever else they have to do in the rest of their life, let alone the project they're working on. And right now, I know people's energy levels are probably at, more extreme cases, whether they have kids, whether they have whatever their issues are, whether they have their own health issues they're concerned about. And so with energy levels right now being more trying on folks, anything to do that might help people not have to spend so much time and energy might make them more willing to come and be a part of the project in a way that makes them feel like they're helping and feeling like they can make an impact. And so I do feel like technology can be that. It also can be the opposite. I'm a proponent of it if it's used the way it's intended to be used. And there are a lot of tools that are difficult to use, and so I seek out the ones that I feel offer me a good user experience. And if it does, I will try and introduce that user experience to others. And if I don't, then I may not elect to use it as much. And the user experience of this product in combination with virtual meetings and with our 360-degree cameras that we have has made my experience working much more pleasurable on a project like this, which makes me more excited to go to work every day and participate in the working world, despite the fact that there are bigger problems in our communities today.
Awesome. I mean, wow, this is a really insightful and really interesting conversation. I'm really glad that I got to learn a lot more about the Pier 70 project myself. I've been in the construction industry for a while, so I've been following the project for some time. And so I'm just really excited to see the development. I want to make sure we have enough time for Q&A. So we do have a couple questions here. One from our very own Maria. Her question is, what is the typical turnaround time for a design change or RFI to be approved or revised on this project? What would be considered fast and what would be considered to be slow?
I think Maria asked that as I was describing my role earlier,
Yeah.
so I'll take a first stab at it. I think if you asked Mike that question, it would probably be 30 minutes. But, cities, I think generally they hold themselves to a 2-week turnaround for something like an RFI or a submittal. Our goal at Hollins is to get things done in a week or so for RFIs. For larger permit drawings or permit amendments, the city tries to meet a 30-day turnaround. Sometimes it's shorter, sometimes unfortunately it's longer. But again, framing the issues that you're trying to accomplish at the outset when you initiate those conversations with the city are key to helping folks understand issues quickly and to respond to them. And so that's what we've tried to use Tracer to do. And again, it also just depends on the scope of the RFI submittal or design change.
Yeah, I mean
Josh has been a remarkable partner with us in that. I think if we were left, our role is CMGC, so we're partly responsible for generating the RFIs, making sure they get through the city. And I think we've established fairly good relationships with a lot of the city agencies and inspectors and departments. But I mean, having somebody like Josh involved has been super helpful and definitely sped up the process for us. It's been working. I mean, not perfect, but it's been working really well. For what we might have had to do if we didn't have somebody like Hollins Consulting engaged.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's taken a big workload off of our staff too, I should say.
Yeah. I think RFIs, is always a touchy word for contractors. It's nobody's favorite.
Yeah. Well, I should also add, Samantha,
to be clear.
I should add, it's in the city and the Port of San Francisco's interest as well to get these projects delivered on time and under budget. Mm-hmm. I mentioned earlier, a lot of people don't realize this. Even some city reviewers, they view these large subdivisions as a moneymaker for developers. Obviously, contractors want to get things done under budget, but these are tax-funded projects. So it's important to the port, it's important to the city to get RFIs through on time as well, just as much as David or Mike want it done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so Plan does a good job of framing issues for us, and we just take them to the city and make sure they get responded to by the right people.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, nothing.
Okay. Another question from a Josh. Would you say that this type of technology will be the industry standard in the next few years? What are your guys' predictions on that? I'll start with David.
I mean, I wouldn't say that our project is standard by any stretch. So while I see its value on large mixed-use development projects in an urban space, I definitely see the value there. And I know it has value in other areas where you've got large subdivision projects. As an industry standard, I think something's going to standardize. And to me, it's more about the platform itself. I see that as being more of what's going to be standard, and how it integrates well with the other, what are becoming more industry standard products that construction managers are using. If the way those integrate well together are going to become the standard. And the ones that do it the best, I think, are going to end up being at the forefront of your selection process. The ones that don't do it as well are going to have a harder time.
Sure. What about you, Josh? What's your thought on this?
Well, David hit on user interface earlier as an important part of getting people to embrace this stuff. And I do think there's nothing more important than that. I've seen a lot of technologies that are pretty powerful that miss the mark on UI. And when you're trying to get a tradesperson who's very skilled at building stuff to go and start using a technology, the first time it throws them an error or they're not able to figure out what to do, that they're going to put their phone, their computer down, and they're just going to say, I don't want to touch this. And so I think as technologies do improve on their UI, and to some extent become more focused in terms of what they're trying to accomplish, I think that will help the adaptation of these technologies. In terms of how long it'll take to become an industry standard, I couldn't really say, but I certainly hope these tools get incorporated into these projects more and more.
Mm-hmm. Mike, what's your take?
There's no doubt that that these, especially as David said and Josh said, the two things are, one, user interface. That's super important for anybody in the construction industry because none of us have a lot of time. And so if we have to think too long about how to use something or how to log in or whatever, we're not going to use it, and our superintendents aren't going to use it, and our project managers aren't going to use it. But if it's easy to use, then it becomes a standard. There's several platforms that are, coming to the forefront, of various aspects of our industry, whether that be Procore for project management or, PlanGrid was super effective for reviewing drawings, et cetera. And a lot of that it was easy to use. And frankly, if a superintendent needs to be able to use it quickly and easily, if they can, then it's going to be used in our industry. A lot of this graphic stuff just helps them so much, and they'll embrace it if it's easy to use. And then where you would use something like Trace here, I think, you do need larger sites. You need to talk about roadways, volumes of earth, things like that. I think that's where something like Tracer can be used. You wouldn't use it on a building necessarily at all, but anything larger, we have some work going on at Treasure Island, and we're using it. We have some work going on in the Presidio, and we're using it over there as well. So that's where I see this particular technology being used. and embraced. Other technologies, I mean, as David said, if it's easy to use, and as I said, if a superintendent can use it and embrace it, then it'll come to the forefront, and we should all be using it. Every good general contractor will be using, these various platforms moving forward.
Yeah, I really appreciated what you said earlier, just talking about developing a parking plan in terms of developing your logistics plans, and how it would be much easier for a superintendent to do that, using overlays and using these tools versus, the old way of just taking an old plan and marking it up in Bluebeam. And so, that was really insightful for me to hear. Are there any, we talked a lot about how implementing technology, really a lot of it hinges on user interface and making it really easy to use. Can you talk about any workflows that might be harder to change or harder to use technology on? Like, where do you see, I guess, major roadblocks in terms of the industry and technological innovation?
I don't see every general contractor is always looking at ways for better project controls, better site controls, access controls, better ways of measuring quantities, better ways of photo documenting the work that they have in place. And so wherever a technology company figures out a way to do that well, a general contractor will always be looking for that and looking to implement it and try it out. And those are always, I think, measured in my simple terms, how well can the superintendent use it? Or the carpenter, how easily can they use it? And if they can, and if it works, then it'll be successful. We've looked at stuff with more AI, so it will we were looking at in particular for COVID, how that might help us with contact tracing. So we've looked at things like wrist bracelet that measure whether you're 6 feet apart using Bluetooth technology, and then we'll either sound an alarm, or at least if we have to contact trace after a case on site, we're able to then go, okay, all these people were within 6 feet of that person. So we've been looking at that for that. We've been looking at it. There's other software out there that will take the camera images that we get from, say, Multivista, and will then, go through there and look if people are wearing hard hats, or if they're even supposed to be on that floor, or, so we've looked at all of that and continue to look at that. We're never going to not look at what's available to us out there. But technology will make its inroads into construction in many areas, and probably AI is the next area that we're starting to see more products come to the market, whether that be robotic excavators, or whether that be drywall hanging machines, or whether that be just controls on site.
That's really interesting. Do David or Josh, any of you guys want to chime in just on what roadblocks you might see in the future?
Yeah, sure. And sorry, I'm trying to type answers to some of these questions.
Oh, sure.
I see David's also doing the same stuff. I didn't listen to the last part of what Mike said, but from the public side, the major roadblocks I've always seen and been frustrated by are just technology companies have to work well with IT departments on security requirements, with stuff like trace air, where you're flying drones, especially in a city like San Francisco. There's probably going to be more and more regulatory challenges with that. I would love for agencies on their capital improvement or maintenance programs to be able to fly drones down public right-of-ways and use tools like this on their own projects. Getting over public perception issues will be difficult there. The UI, as we've discussed, is key, especially when you're working with, people who have been doing paper and pencil their whole careers. And then just showing the value of the product to these agencies and showing them, that this is going to be a tool that's going to be around for a long time, that their data is protected. I come from a public agency, and those were the questions that always came up when we tried to purchase or subscribe to a new software.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we have time for just one more quick question. I saw a question about pay applications, and I did see that it was answered in the chat, but I wasn't sure if you wanted to address that live, David.
I mean, I think it's better for Josh to address it. I'll give you the quick and easy though, is that it's helped us from the owner side represent what work has been completed with photo documentation and measurement tools, as opposed to just doing it on a PDF and walking the whole site and trying to look at it and say, did you actually do this? Did you not? Look back at the paper again. Now you can just do it right on an image at the end. So we time our drone imagery to line up with our pay application so that they ultimately, the values you're going to be putting in for review match the photo. And the photo is a big plan view oversight that you're seeing on my screen. And you can pan in and look at those, service improvements or potentially pipe. If you're looking at, the pipe out here, how much have you done? It'll be a little bit more clear what's been done. But Josh, you can elaborate on that since you're the one who approves them.
Yeah, I think David hit the main points. We review pay applications and development requests for reimbursements ultimately within the framework of infrastructure finance code and the project's governing documents. There's a contract between the port and the developer that stipulates a lot of the requirements, and so we're checking boxes. Is the percent completed that the contractor's stating commensurate with what we're observing? Has everything been inspected by the agencies who are going to acquire this infrastructure? Things of that nature. And so Tracer obviously provides a visual of work completed for us. So rather than going out with a roller, I can take a measurement right on Tracer from an image that matches the pay application date to quickly validate any questions about quantities I might have. I can also overlay concrete break records if I have GIS points for those against the Tracer images to make sure special inspections have been performed. So Tracer makes our workflow more efficient in that sense. Mm-hmm. We don't have to go to the site to do some of these very basic but important checks.
So it probably eliminates some back and forth and just makes the process a lot smoother.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, that's great to hear. It looks like we're about out of time. So if you guys have any other comments you want to wrap up with, otherwise, I will just say thank you all for participating. David, you look like you want to say something.
No, I appreciate the time. I think I also really appreciate Josh and Mike participating in this with me and really allowing us to talk about all the different components of this together. So it's been a very cool product to use, and I've been enjoying using it with them and understanding how they get to use it is the thing I'm fascinated most by. So that's the reason why I try and introduce it to more people is how else can we continue to figure out ways to better use technology.
That's what we love to hear. Well, I want to thank our lovely panelists, David, Josh, and Mike, for participating. Thank you guys so much. This was truly a delight to listen to, and I'm glad I got to learn so much. And thank you to our participants for listening in. And if anybody wants to revisit this, we will post this on tracer.net. And if you have any follow-up questions or want to know more, you can always send us an email at info@tracer.net. Thank you all again for participating, and I hope you all have a lovely rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Goodbye.
Bye.